commenced. It's June 6th at 4 p.m. This is a virtual meeting. We ask to mute yourselves until called upon to speak to avoid feedback and background noise. For those who have dialed in using the call-in number to unmute to speak, dial *6 on your phone, and that you only use the chat function to request to speak. Also, to comply with the state open meeting law, attendance and votes will be done by way of roll call using audio. So first thing we're going to do is roll call. Maggie.
Present.
Wendy Asher. Wendy's not here. Marianne. I think Marianne's going to be here, I think. Okay, so Wendy. Mindy Bernstein.
Here.
Mark Clark.
Yo.
Vicky Casino. Vicky's not here. Lori Mazurbo.
Present.
Tisha's out. Jim Toffel, I'm here. Ray is out, and Kenny Wong.
I'm here.
Okay, so we got Wendy, Marianne, and Vicky are absent. Okay, our ex officio members, Ann Chinenka.
Here. Happy to be here.
Welcome. Corin Manning.
Present.
Betty Viegas. Betty's out. Marcos Ismail.
Here.
And Mike Edmonds.
Jim, you didn't call me, I don't think, but I'm here.
Jay.
Here.
Oh, that's on page 2. Sorry. So that's what you get for having a last name that starts with a Y.
I know. It's been that way forever.
All right, Jay Young is here. Thank you, Jay. Okay, our first agenda item is to approve the May meeting minutes, which were sent out. So are there any changes to those meeting minutes? I have one, I guess, clarification I think I'd like to make on agenda item number 5. Says a motion was made to approve the subcommittee goals as revised. And I know we tabled the overall mission statement for the commission based on discussions on item number 2. But did we actually, I don't remember, did we actually approve the subcommittee goals? Did we vote to approve those?
That's what we have kind of on record, that we kind of agreed to the subcommittee goals.
Okay. Okay, so okay. But I'm misremembering then. All right, is there any changes? Anybody see any changes they'd like to make to the meeting minutes? All right, then without objection, the minutes are approved. Our next agenda item is the call to the audience. Call to audience is limited to 3 minutes per speaker, a total time of 10 minutes. All speakers must share their name to be recorded in the meeting minutes. Remember, the call to audience may not result in discussion with members of CEHD. No legal action may be taken during the call to the audience, and speakers may not be disruptive. CEHD members may only respond to criticism and request that items be placed on a future agenda item for discussion. Members of the audience may still participate on agenda items as per the bylaws of CEHD. So are there any attendees who would like to speak?
I don't see any hands up at this moment. No hands yet, Jim.
Okay, let's keep going then. Okay, next agenda item is to finalize the CEHD goals. Okay, and that, does everybody have the goals and the mission statement up?
So Jim, I think we were using, and I think what the Equitable Strategies subcommittee did was work on the Google Doc. So I can share my screen and show the Google Doc because it has some of the kind of suggested language that people were working on for goal number 2.
Okay,
Just
that
give
would be,
me a minute. Where did my share screen go? Okay, hang on. Okay, can folks see my screen?
yes.
Do I need to zoom in or anything?
I'm going to sign out real quick and then sign back in. I lost the Zoom, so see if I can figure out, or maybe I'll, oh, this is not it. What is this?
So Allison, okay, so I see what you did here. So on the bottom was the proposed language from the Affordable Housing Subcommittee. That's the last sentence. These first 5 or 6 items here, are those from, Jay, are those from you?
Yeah, those are some kind of ideas that we were kicking around from our last subcommittee meeting that we wanted to share with the full commission. And it was basically about kind of building on the conversation about recognizing and addressing past harms.
So yeah, right, this is kind of language that was already there. The blue were suggested kind of after the retreat, and then what's now in bold is sort of alternative language that people have suggested since that time to kind of replace this crossed out blue that folks that we had a lot of discussion on at the last meeting. At the bottom here is what is the proposed language from the Affordable Housing Subcommittee.
Who wants to go first on this?
I'd be happy to just kind of provide the framework again. I think that we were discussing at the previous CEHD meeting, and then kind of where we landed and some discussion that we had in our subcommittee. I would say most simply, I think that if we're looking at equity, the reason that we have inequities today is because past harms were placed on particular communities, and in order to create a more equitable community, it's necessary to acknowledge those past harms and think about how efforts that we take today either exacerbate that past harm, or are neutral, or are doing things to improve equity, going forward today and going forward. So I think that was kind of where we landed in terms of why we think it's important to have some language regarding this in this section. And I included or found an article that I believe Neto shared with everyone about the potential development on South 10th and 22nd, and the reaction from the community around there, and the recognition from those neighborhoods that they're very skeptical, and trust is an issue because of past harms that they believe that their community has suffered. So as we think about affordable housing and development, generally speaking, the idea of things that have happened in the past have a big impact on how people engage with the city, support different efforts for affordable housing, community development, et cetera. So I think that's a pretty decent summary. I know Lori was there and Kenny was there as well. Unfortunately, Tisha and Ray are not here to chime in, but I don't know if Kenny and Lori have anything to add.
Before we proceed, this is Ernesto. If Mindy's not in, apparently we do not have quorum. Mindy, are you in? No. Okay. I don't see her in the list. One, two, three, four,
Yeah, we've got 6.
6. Correct. Um,
She said she was just going to drop off for a second and get back in. So she's coming back. Can we give her a minute?
sure. I'll
All right.
message her.
So I just talked to Mary Ann. She lost track of time. She's jumping on right now. Neto, can we talk about logistics since we have a second?
Sure.
So next week, everybody, or next month, our meeting is falling on the 4th of July. So we're going to need to move that. Oh, Mary Ann's on now. We're going to need to move it to a different day, and I'm actually out of the country for 2 weeks at the beginning of July. So I'm going to miss next month's meeting, but I believe we're going to send a poll out to everyone to try to nail down a different date. The thought was we just push it back 1 week. So it'd be the second Thursday of July instead of the first. Okay, so we're good with quorum again?
Correct. Mary Ann is here.
Okay. All right, go ahead and continue, Jay.
That was it, actually. I think I kind of shared my thoughts, and just was leaving it open for Kenny and Lori to chime in if there's anything that I missed or that they would like to add from our meeting.
I think you covered it, Jay. Thank you.
So
Yeah.
go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, just Jay captured it well. You know, we had a fair bit of discussion, and I think that recognition piece was important to understand how we got to how we are where we are. And it was a timely example that came up in the article he shared.
I apologize for being late, everybody. I was having fun doing budgets for next year and the time got away from me. So where are we?
We're talking about the mission statement, item number 2.
Okay.
So the items in bold, I'm having a brain fart on what the new subcommittee's name is.
Equitable housing strategies.
Thank you. The Equitable Housing Strategy Subcommittee. So this article that was sent out about the 22nd and South 22nd and 10th Avenue site it's an affordable housing site. And I heard about the neighborhood meeting that it did not go well. But this is, I mean, this is an affordable housing project. It's not like we're tearing down a bunch of existing homes to build this. And this seems like this is what we should be trying to support, not support.
Jim, one just FYI, I do plan on providing an update during the HCD updates regarding that project and that meeting.
I mean, this kind of just falls into a lot of the stuff that we've been talking about with, you know, people not wanting to have an affordable housing project located near where they live because there's a lot of the misconceptions about affordable housing. You know, so it seems to me like as a commission, this is a good example of something we should be trying to support.
Jim, you're still on the item of finalizing the goals.
Right. Well, I mean, the reason I bring it up is because this was given as an example of how it's creating harm.
No, no, Jim, can I clarify?
Yeah.
I think you're exactly right. And I think that the way that you have put it is the reason that we need to recognize past harms, because in this instance, in this situation, the reason that people are not supportive and are skeptical of this new development, which obviously we as a commission would generally support, is because the neighborhood is bringing up past harms that have been inflicted upon them, and they are basically saying, we don't trust what the city is going to do with this property because of what's happened in the past. And so I think that that's exactly why it's important to have this as something that we're focusing on as a commission, because it is impeding progress. These past harms that have been felt by different neighborhoods and communities in Tucson is impeding the trust that's needed and the you know, moving forward with things that the community needs. And people refer back to these past harms as reasons to not move forward.
So does the affordable housing subcommittee, you know, in there, we talked about forming this in a way that recognized that there was harm by saying, you know, reducing the potential for future harm, and supporting policies that protect barrios and communities from rapid change and displacement, as well as structural disinvestment, thereby reducing the potential for future harm. I think, you know, does that cover what you all have been talking about, also, what some of us are concerned about? Is that, what are your thoughts on that, Jay?
I'm happy to provide more thoughts, but I would really love for others to chime in, because I mean, I'm certainly, think this is important, but again, I don't want to carry the mantle if others are not, think that this is an important piece of the puzzle. So I just want to open it up for others to chime in as well.
I know that Ray was a major kind of factor in this, and Ray's not here. And I don't want to postpone this again, but I'm also afraid that Ray's going to want to have Ray's voice heard. So Mark, why don't you go ahead and.
Yeah, I guess I'm concerned that what I see here is a whole lot of different sentences without a clear recommendation from the subcommittee on what language to respond to. And so I feel that this is not matured enough actually at this point to allow me, as somebody who, I mean, I have some understanding and opinion about some of these issues, but I'm not really comfortable writing out of whole cloth, or not necessarily whole cloth, but at least stitching together something out of a group of phrases that are stuck there. So that's my opinion.
Marcos?
Yeah, I think Jay was kind of on the right track, and I think part of the problem, I think, relates specifically to prior uses at that site and concerns that it was a previous dump site, and so so I think that maybe is one of the areas of concern that needs to be addressed for the community as to how the city and developers will address those issues and mitigate those any in this case past harms would be potentially environmental issues at the site because of the prior use. So that helps kind of pinpoint the issue a little more, I think. Hopefully.
Yeah. Allison?
So I just wanted to maybe suggest, the kind of goal is to finalize our goals. There is obviously, I think I agree, a lot of wording here. We have kind of a proposal from the Affordable Housing Subcommittee. I'm kind of wondering if they're between the folks from the Equitable Strategy Subcommittee, if there's kind of one proposal that felt like rose to the top from your conversation. I'll just say it sort of feels like this one would be seems like the one that is capturing what Jay and Kenny and Lori are referring to. So I wonder about trying to kind of agree on the other language and adopt that at this meeting, and then do an email vote on the alternative language for number 2, if we're feeling like we want folks like Ray and Tisha to be able to weigh in. Thoughts?
Mm-hmm. Marianne? Marianne, you want to go?
Yes, I'm trying to unmute. So this conversation started because using the word inflicted and also advocate for efforts to repair harm. So what it sounded like and what it sounds is like to advocate for efforts to repair, mitigate harm means that we as a commission would like the city to go back and mitigate mitigate past harm. So I absolutely don't support that. And what we're trying to do, with our proposal from the Affordable Housing Subcommittee, it's not just a bunch of lines, it's a proposal. That number 2 says support policies that protect barrios and communities from rapid change and displacement, as well as structural disinvestment, thereby reducing the potential for future harm. We can't ask the mayor and the council. That's a decision they make, not us. And I don't think it's in our authority at all to, advocate as part of this commission for them to repair past harm. And I think that this line will be misread because we've had a lot of discussion around it and everybody has a different opinion on it. We want to go forward. The city of Tucson, the HCD division and the mayor, they're doing something positive. Everybody's aware of the history. Jason, explained that in our last meeting in person. And I think that we're all committed to making sure that there are policies that will protect the barrios and communities and reduce the potential for future harm. So ours is not, just a bunch of lines. It's an actual proposal that I thought we were supposed to come back with for this meeting today.
Kenny?
I thought Allison had some good suggestions. And I think the crux of it, for at least for me, is the recognition as a starting point. I think that's partly why the commission exists too, that it's a recognition of where the city is at. And I don't see a problem, kind of editing the Affordable Housing Subcommittee's proposal and adding that piece of recognition in. And, even some of the language, it could be, what do I want to say, like recognizing the unequal impacts or burdens of historical development, right? It's that starting point. I think that is really important. And then the rest of that, reducing the potential, like I'm in agreement with that too, so.
Jay?
I certainly understand everybody's perspective here, and I just want to clarify, one of the reasons that we provided a number of different kind of takes on potential language is because there was so much pushback last meeting, and so we wanted to bring some things forward that people could look at and kind of weigh back and forth, and that's why we didn't come with something totally put together. It was in an effort to be more inclusive of everybody on the commission. So that's what that's for. The other point I would like to make is, when I think about equity and why we're even discussing equity, I would say one of the main reasons that we are talking about equity and the fact that our community is inequitable is because of decisions that created harm in the past, right? So racist covenants are a good example of a past harm. And I feel like if we do not, one, acknowledge and then actively take steps to address that past harm, it's just hard for me to see how we actually get to a more equitable community. Because if you just stop and say, well, those past harms are in the past and we're not going to do anything about them, it just is the status quo, which I feel like is where we have been for a very long time, because we're not willing to say, you know what, we actually need to look at those harms and see how we can address those. And I understand, the city council, can't go back and repair every harm and make everything right. But at the same time, I guess it's hard for me to see how we get to an equitable community if we're not addressing some of the past harms. I mean, we're still segregated, in my opinion, because we have not had the courage to actually address that past harm. And if we don't address it, it's status quo. and we're still segregated. So that's just one example of why I think it's important to say, not only are we going to do our best not to inflict future harm, I mean, that's a really low bar. I think we need to be looking at how we're developing so that we ensure that to the best of our ability, not only are we not harming communities going forward, but that we're actually improving communities that have been harmed in the past. So while I understand the kind of controversial nature of some of this language and the fact that frankly I think it makes people uncomfortable, it's hard for me to see again how we get to a place of equity in the future if we're not addressing those past harms.
Marianne?
Let Mindy go first. I was just listening to Jay and Kenny and I was writing something up, and so I'll finish
Okay.
that.
Mindy?
Jay, could your committee live with the proposal, the AH affordable housing proposal, support policies that protect various communities, blah, blah, and then adding in recognize past inequities and advocate for efforts to I think we're getting into the weeds, and that I realize that this is important that we get clarified. I hear that we're talking about inequities, coming from a minority background and not being allowed to join country clubs or participate. I get this stuff pretty firsthand. I'm hearing Marianne say, putting things about past harm. These are, documents that are going to be going to mayor and council and staying within purview for a long time. So is there room to say recognize past harm, inequities, and advocate for efforts to maintain equity, recognize past inequities, and eliminate future inequity? I'm done. I'm getting frustrated with this process.
Here's my suggestion. Jay, if the Equitable Housing Strategy Subcommittee is comfortable maybe taking the Affordable Housing Subcommittee's proposed language and coming back with an alternate language for us to review. I think is understanding, I think the discussions that happened in the affordable housing were to try to focus on the future and look forward, as opposed to focusing on the past. And fixing those things. Because I think from my perspective, I was struggling with where do you draw the line? How do you draw the line of what kind of meets the threshold and what doesn't? And then I was thinking about, if we did actually make a recommendation how to repair past harm, how do we do that? So, there were some things that I personally wasn't necessarily comfortable with in terms of if I have to be the guy that makes those recommendations to mayor and council. It needs to be something that we're on really solid ground with. So, do you want to take it back and come back with alternate language for the next meeting? Another proposal? I'm not sure that we're going to solve this here.
Yeah, we can absolutely take a stab at it and come back with something that's more in a more final form. Absolutely.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and let everybody have one last word on this. Marianne?
So listening to both Kenny and Jay, and wanting to, I think, which it is, you just say, we understand that there's been past harms and we want to avoid that going forward, those, you know, that the whatever creates inequity. So can we just start off the Affordable Housing Subcommittee's proposal with acknowledging past harms, comma, you know, support policies, blah, 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 thereby reducing the potential for future harm? Does that solve the lack of the recognition of the past harms that's not in the affordable housing proposal?
Mr. Chairman, I'm ready to actually make a motion with some wording. You can see if anybody, people like it or not.
Okay, hang on, let's let her get these notes in there and then, so Allison, do you want to maybe, should we start a new line with its completely different wording, or is it pretty close to what we've got already? Mark?
I was gonna start with number 2. That's already up there. Protect barrios and communities from rapid change and displacement, as well as structural disinvestment. Change the period to a comma, and then add recognizing past harm and advocating for efforts to repair harm. Period.
Harm. Okay. Sorry.
Marianne?
So I'm going to make that as a motion because we're not going. So somebody wants to, I'm just going to make that as a motion.
Okay, so there's a motion. Is there a second? Anybody want to second it?
Sorry, that's a bad color.
I tried.
And you did. Allison, can you make it a different color than green?
Yes.
That would be, thank you.
Okay. Kenny, did you want to second that?
Purple.
Thank you.
For me, these are heading in the right direction, and I wonder if we could still do the vote with all the members by email, with both the proposed language, or kind of receive something, other ideas for revision, or ranked choice or something from the options.
Yeah, we can. I think if we don't have a second, then we can't move forward with this.
I'll second it.
Okay, thank you, Mindy. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. So let's talk about this specific language. Protect barrios and communities from rapid change and displacement, as well as structural disinvestment, recognizing past harm and advocating for efforts to repair harm. Marianne?
Okay, it's the advocating for efforts to repair harm. The way that this can be, with recognizing past harm, the way that this can be seen is that we are going to advocate that the city of Tucson repair past harms.
Right.
So that's not our decision to make, and I really think that the Affordable Housing Subcommittee proposal addresses everything that people have been talking about here, including not putting it on something that could be misconstrued as our saying the city has to repair, and everybody's seeing harms as repairing harms as financial. They can't do that. So we just have to be really careful here about how we're saying this. So, that's why recognizing past harms, in the beginning of the Affordable Housing Subcommittee proposal makes it clear, we understand there's been past harms, and so we want policies that are gonna protect from that.
Mindy?
I think the word equity needs to come in here. Recognizing past harm, moving back into the Mark's recommendation, recognizing past harm and advocating for efforts to maintain equity in the future. Or that word equity needs to be in here somewhere, I think. Jay, would that? And I feel bad that Rachel's not here.
Ray?
I guess I was going to say, I think that this is actually getting pretty close to incorporating the things that we, at least in our discussions in the subcommittee, think are important. And I would just say, I mean, we're an advisory body, period. So, these are just guidelines that are helping us to make decisions and think through the issues that we're dealing with as a commission. So we're not telling the city to do anything through any of these 4 guidelines. So, the idea that because we have this language of, advocating for efforts to repair past harm, I just think it's a little much to read that much into this one in particular, because again, we're just an advisory body. And again, I just feel like if you go back and look at the literature about equity and how to make communities more equitable, this idea of advocating for repairing past harms is front and center in how folks that study this and look at equity, this is just a piece of the puzzle in creating more equitable communities. Because again, the reason that we have so much inequity is because there have been intentional past harms, and those harms need to be repaired, or we don't achieve equity. I don't see how we can't have that piece that we're not telling the city council to do X, Y, and Z. It's, we are looking at ways to advocate for when it's possible for past harms to be repaired. And again, I just think that if you look at the situation with South 10th and 22nd, that piece of land where, everybody agrees we need more affordable housing, the fact that that neighborhood is opposed and is asking for more environmental remediation, more information, is tied back clearly to past harms and the fact that those have not been recognized, and that nothing has been done to try and repair them, at least, if you look at that article and what people are saying. So that's kind of where I'll leave it. I feel like I'm kind of repeating myself at this point, but I guess if Lori and Kenny were okay with it, and I'm kind of sorry that Ray and Tisha aren't here to chime in, but I do think what Mark proposed is getting pretty close to where we had landed as a subcommittee.
So there's a chat from Bob Delaney where he suggests just changing the word repair to mitigate future. So it'd be efforts to mitigate future harm instead of repair harm. Maggie?
Yeah, I agree with Mr. Delaney. I think that we want to look at what we've done in the past and use that information moving forward so that we don't replicate. I feel like that's more in line with, I think, what we should be doing.
So, Mark, do you want to change the word repair to mitigate future? Are you comfortable with that change?
I'd probably be more comfortable with efforts to repair and mitigate harm, frankly. Because I mean, I think we have absolutely a responsibility to advocate. That doesn't mean that we're going to be directing the manager and the city staff to do anything. That's absolutely the role of the mayor and council. And I believe the mayor and council have created us to make recommendations to them. And there may be a situation where there's an appropriate mitigation response that can be undertaken. And if one pops up, I don't have a problem looking at that. And of course, we want to mitigate future opportunities for harm or future harm. So I mean, but I'm not entire. I think we shouldn't assume that there's not something that we and others will determine would be appropriate to repair past harms. I don't know what it is, honestly, but anyway. So that's sort of maybe both, I guess, Jim, I would say.
So part of my discomfort is I'm tending to think of the worst when it comes to repairing harm. And so I don't know if there's an example. What's an example of a recommendation that we would make to the city on how they could repair past harms?
They can tear down the community center and build single-family homes for the people
that's not gonna happen.
displaced.
But no, that is a serious question. What would be an example of a recommendation that would go along those lines? Because it's, I tend to think in terms of financially, and I'm not sure that that's, I don't know. I just don't understand it. So Lori?
I just wanted to agree with both Jay and Mark, and something also that Maggie said. I think if we're afraid to say repair, but then we say in the same sentence that we don't want to create the same harms that we created in the past, that's a misnomer. It's like we're afraid to put it in writing, but all we're doing is recognizing that it happened, trying to make sure it doesn't happen again, and telling mayor and council that. I think it's their job to figure out how you repair those harms. Our job is to make suggestions, and it isn't sitting well with me that we're not willing to just say what happened. That's how history repeats itself. If we're not willing to say that, it's ugly. It's not great. Nobody wants to think about it. And it's not that we're saying the current city of Tucson staff are the ones who did it, or that, they're terrible people or whatever. But I think not calling it what it isn't helping us as a commission.
Kenny?
Yeah, I'm in support of what Lori just shared. And, to the question of like, what's an example, Jay had brought in the racist covenants. And I could imagine, I could see that as a reparation, repairing some of the harm of that language, right? And so with the mayor had signed that bill, it's allowing communities to choose if they want to vote to remove that language from their documents. So, for me, it's not just financial, but it opens the door for a range of responses and options. And I think, how that bill, progressed, right? It took people advocating, even though different neighborhoods or communities will have a different response to what they want to do with that language. So I think I see that as an example of what we can open up by including the sense of repair and what we can recommend for it.
Yeah, that's a good example. Jay?
I would say another pretty straightforward example is, I don't know all of the specific details, but I know that over the past couple of months, Mayor Romero and Councilmember Santa Cruz have gone to the dedication of a new park on the south side. And that park was kind of framed as, this neighborhood has been disinvested in for a long time, and neighbors have been calling for a park for a very long time. And the city has recognized that this area has been disinvested in, and they made a special effort based on the feedback from the neighbors and the community to create a park. So you know, again, I think that's a pretty straightforward example of where that has happened, and the mayor and a council member have framed it in that very way. So I think that's a good example.
And that is another good example. Maggie?
I guess my question is about scope, you know, recognizing past harm. I acknowledge that that's important, but how far back do we go? And, you know, are we going to be researching these as they come up? How do we identify those past harms? Are we going to be actively looking for them? And, you know, is that going to, I mean, we meet, you know, once a month. Is it something really that's something we can handle?
Mark?
I want to say, as a person who's bought a number of houses in the city of Tucson and Pima County now, that I've honestly not been impacted by any like the restrictive covenants. I'm not aware that I've been harmed or otherwise negatively impacted by any of the conditions we're talking about here, and I don't think, given that privilege, it's not up to me to decide what's appropriate repairs and responses. I think it's up to the impacted communities to come forward and talk with us and the elected officials, and they're doing that, about what ought these responses to be, and that is going to create uncomfortability without a doubt. But I think that I don't think we can say bad things happened in the past, and we're going to do better in the future, but bad things happen, but that's all past. I think you have to look at and listen to what the people say, who have been so negatively impacted by these harms in the past. And I will now, I believe, stop talking about it. So.
All right. Well, I think this has been a really healthy discussion. I think those were two good examples that definitely make me look at this a little bit differently personally. So we have a motion on the table. We have a second. And I guess I'd just like to put it out. Do we want to bring this to question now? Do we want to table this? I mean, do we want to put it to vote?
I'd like to put it to vote with a,
Okay.
with a change.
Any final comments or questions before we put it to question?
I was just
Mindy
gonna
had
ask,
one.
Yeah, I think part of this conversation was in the highlighted paragraph, recognizing past harm and advocating for efforts to mitigate and efforts to repair and mitigate. Oh, darn, my brain.
Future harm. And mitigate future harm.
Future harm, yeah.
Is that a change, Mark, you want to make to this?
It's your motion on the floor, or once I made it, it's available. I certainly would support that change.
I think we have some redundancy in that.
I think we get rid of the first harm. So efforts to repair and mitigate future harm.
Mm-hmm. Leave the end and good.
Okay. Okay.
Can I just say I'm not a English major, but advocating for efforts to repair and mitigate to me refers to future harm and not repairing past harm. But maybe that's just me.
True.
Okay, well, Mark, you made the reason I asked you if you're comfortable with the changes, you made the motion, so you and Mindy both have to agree to the change, and then we'll put this to question.
Well, based upon what the not English professor just said, I would probably stick the word past in between advocating for efforts to repair past harms and mitigate future ones.
Right.
Past harm and mitigate future, I guess, harm. So I would leave it like that. Thank
Okay,
you.
Mindy, you good with those?
Yes.
Okay, any other final comments before we put this to question? Okay, let's go ahead and vote. Maggie Amato Tejas,
Why am I first?
because your last name starts with an A.
It's also ends with a T. But I support it. I'm a little concerned about just the scope, but I'll support that.
Okay,
Yes.
so that's a yes. Wendy's not here. Marianne?
You know, there's, God. I'm gonna support it because I think it's a consensus on the committee versus my initial reaction, which was to abstain.
Okay. Mindy?
I agree with Marianne's sentiment. Yes, I will. Yes, it's a yes.
Yes. Okay, Mark?
Aye.
Lori?
Yes.
Kenny?
Yes.
Jay?
Yes.
All right, the yeses have it. Okay, so as a point of clarification, Neto and Allison, did we as a commission approve all of the other goals on this and it was just number 2 that was a sticking point? Are we good here or do we need to also have a motion to approve goals 1, 2, and 4?
So my
Sorry.
understanding is that we adopted the subcommittee goals down here, but we have some outstanding, for instance, alternative language for number 3. And we have these sort of blue red lines to the rest of this language. And so,
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's finish this. Let's finish this now then. So would anybody like to make a motion to approve? So can we make a clean copy of this real quick? Yeah, so change that to 2. Okay. And then, okay, so to approve the 4 goals as written. So first goal is to develop and preserve affordability for all Tucsonans, including renters, homeowners, and those without housing. Number 2 is to protect barrios communities from rapid change and displacement, as well as structural disinvestment, recognizing past harm and advocating for efforts to repair harm and mitigate future harm. Number 3 is to collaborate with landlords and developers in providing equitable, accessible, and quality affordable housing. And then number 4 is serve as a forum for community collaboration and education on issues of equitable housing and quality housing.
I move that we accept it.
Is there a second?
I second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Now, I guess the one question I have here is on alternate wording for number 3.
Yeah.
Identify and reduce barriers to creating and maintain equitable, accessible, and quality affordable housing. So
Where did that come from?
I'm not sure.
I believe that was our suggestion as well, just because we felt like we would want to collaborate with everybody in the community and to specify that we would work just specifically with landlords and developers. Why not just make it more inclusive? We're trying to reduce barriers across the board, and landlords and developers are obviously welcome partners, but so are community groups or, whatever other groups you could think of. I believe that was the thinking. Kenny and Lori, correct me if I'm wrong, but.
Yeah, I would support the alternate wording. And Jay, that's correct.
So that would include architects, the city, other, ancillary people who are maybe not directly responsible for developing the housing, but have a role to play.
Or like, neighborhood associations like the one that's, involved in the 22nd and South 10th area, right?
All right. And are you good with that wording?
So you're talking about replacing all of the black and red language above and just starting with identify and reduce, and that sentence becomes 3?
Yes.
Works for me.
Marianne, are you good with that change?
I'm not, but I don't care anymore. I'm tired of the conversation.
Okay. Not sure what to do with that. So are you comfortable with the change, or do you not want to make that change? You're on mute.
Here's what I think is happening. I think that the idea of developing affordable housing is getting lost on the commission. And I think that that's just what I think. And I think that I'm just kind of copped an attitude. So, whatever you all decide, I just don't care. I just feel like we're going to come back and have to redo this again anyway, because there's going to be a request for, rewording. I thought in the commission meeting that we had in our retreat that we had come up and agreed to this, and then, a surprise, one of the committees changes all this, and I just have a concern about how all of this happened in the first place.
We were asked to review this in our subcommittees to provide.
We were asked to review our subcommittee goals.
That was not our understanding, because clearly
I got that.
We never would have undertaken this if.
All right, well, guys, we need to figure that we need to get through this. And so we need to have some sort of consensus on the language and what we're
So then
put.
I remove my motion.
Okay.
And you guys, take it from here.
Okay, so the motion is withdrawn. Is there anybody else who would like to make a motion to accept items 1, 2, the alternate wording on 3 and 4?
I will move that.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
I second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion on item number 3 or anything else here? Okay, I'm going to call the question then. Maggie.
Aye.
Marianne? Marianne? I think we might have lost Marianne. Let's see, Mindy?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Lori?
Aye.
Kenny?
Aye.
Jay?
Aye.
All right, the ayes have it. Okay, that was challenging, everybody. I appreciate patience in getting through that. Okay, where are we? So HCD update. Ann, you still with us?
No, she said she had to go to a city manager's.
She left.
But we
Okay,
can
so
still give
Allison.
HCD updates. Anne had to run off. So I don't know, Jason, do you want to do the first few, and then I'll hop in on the South 10th update? pull up the website. You're muted though, Jason.
Golly, it's like I've never used Teams or Zoom before. Sorry, y'all. So happy to. The first update is related to PCHIP. So the People, Communities, and Homes Investment Plan. As you know, we're working through updating that plan for the next 5 years. And so over the next 3 weeks, we're holding a series of stakeholder meetings. Those are all kind of topically specific and based on information that emerged as priorities through our survey. So we had about 450 survey responses. And through that, we're able to kind of identify some key priorities, particularly kind of priority populations such as children and youth, older adults, people with disabilities, and then some topics like affordable housing development, and kind of housing justice and some other topics and community safety, et cetera. So we're holding a series of stakeholder focus groups over the next 3 weeks related to those topics. And then that'll be sort of the last engagement process as part of our PCHIP planning. Lena, I want to kind of throw it to you just for a second and see Lena Perel, who is a planner with our team, has been leading the PCHIP process and has been extraordinary. And so I want to give her an opportunity if there's anything else that she'd like shared.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Jason. Nothing else really to report, but I'll show just quickly the different focus groups that we have. I know that some of you have already gotten invites to some of these, but I wanted to share just in case. Let me see. Just, you guys see those different groups? Okay, yeah. If there are any of these different focus groups that you haven't been invited to or want to still join, feel free to email me and I can make sure that you have the information for the time and the place of where to show up. But yeah, so we'll have these focus groups at the end of June, like Jason said, and then we will be writing the plan in July and have a draft ready for input from you all in August. And at the next commission meeting, we'll have a full analysis of the survey results that I can share with you all. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Lena. And could you throw your email in the chat so that folks have it if they did want to attend one of those and haven't already received an invite? Thanks so much. Couple of other very exciting updates. And I know some of you are aware of this, but HCD had applied for low-income housing tax credits to support an affordable housing development at what we're calling Sugar Hill on Stone. That is the former property that the bum steer was located on, so sort of a known property to most Tucsonans. And so that'll be, I believe, 63 or 66 units. I apologize, I don't remember exactly, of new affordable housing development that we were able to move forward with because of that tax credit allocation. So we're really excited about that. And then we also learned just today that we were awarded a youth homelessness system improvement grant as part of a collaboration with the Maricopa Association of Governments, which is the continuum of care up in Maricopa County, and Arizona Department of Housing, which runs the balance of state continuum of care related to homelessness for rural counties across the state. So I want to give Austin an opportunity. Austin has been sort of the brain and hands and kind of all things behind Tucson's participation in this effort, and a huge win for her and her team. So I want to give her an opportunity to kind of share some details there.
Well, we just learned we were awarded today, but overall, HUD and the federal all-in plans looking to expand the Youth Homelessness Demonstration Project to facilitate further system improvements across the nation that create more and a better breadth of opportunities to serve youth and young adults experiencing homelessness. So this award will allow for the balance of our entire state to increase meaningful experience, involvement of youth with lived experience of homelessness, and further intensify the support at the system level to rapidly engage youth experiencing homelessness in their entry into safe and permanent housing.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Austin. And congratulations to the team on that great work. And then I believe with that, I can turn it over to Allison, who can update you on South 10th.
Before we do that, I just want to just go back to the City of Tucson awards. So the low income housing tax credit awards came out, I believe, on Monday this week, and Pima County received 4 of the 10 awards. So there was one tribal award. Chicanos por las Causa received their award for the rehab that they're doing down off of Irvington. There was another project in South Tucson which received an award, and then the Sugar House. So I think it's a huge success for the city of Tucson. I think it is also in part due to some of the things that we've done as a commission in terms of helping bring focus to how the city competes for these projects. So I think it's a success for us as a commission, and it's something that we should be proud of as a city that's happened. So it was a very challenging LIHTC round because the number of tax credits which were awarded dropped by 50%. So there was only 2 projects in the general pool which received an award. So we got the one rehab project in the state, we got a state special needs project, and we got the one general pool project, and then one tribal project. So it was a very good year for Tucson. Just to put it in perspective, Maricopa County had a total of 2 awards. So we have twice as many tax credits coming to Pima County as what's going up to Maricopa County. So I love that.
Thanks so much, Jim. And really thank you for kind of highlighting there's certainly a win for the city in here, but there is a much bigger win for the community as a whole. And so I appreciate you highlighting that.
Yeah. Allison?
All right. Thank you. Yes, agreed. So Anne just wanted me to kind of touch really quickly on where we are with the South 10th development that we're working on, and really just kind of emphasize. So we did have a community meeting May 9th, so about a month ago at this point. And that was our kind of first community meeting to kind of try to start having conversations about, what we're looking at for the site. So I'll share my screen in a second and kind of show the website where you can find more information and kind of see the presentation. Just kind of want to emphasize here that so when Anne is here, either next month or August, she'll do a little bit more of a deeper dive into the project. But the kind of primary things to note are that it is, okay, now Sarah might have to jump in, 13 acres of city-owned land on South 10th Avenue, just south of 22nd Street. That is, HCD is looking at building affordable mixed income, mixed use housing on that site. And so we're really in the super duper beginning stages. The kind of plan is for us to go out for an RFQ for a developer partner sometime this summer, as long as it's still hot. It's this summer. So let me just share my screen, and Sarah, you can correct anything I just said.
It's 12 acres.
12 acres.
I mean, yes.
Okay. So this is a project under our El Pueblo housing development arm. On the South 10th site, you can kind of find all of the information that's available right now, including signing up for project updates and completing a feedback form. But this is a little bit of the background in terms of where exactly it is, just south of 10th Avenue. And then here is information about the neighborhood meeting that we had, including the presentation and all the documents, kind of due diligence that we've done so far, including a phase 1 environmental site analysis. And a little bit of a timeline. We also developed some FAQs that we passed out at the meeting, and are available here. And Mark has his hand up, but I think I'm done with my presentation.
Mark, go ahead.
So is that, that's the refuse transfer site? Is that, am I correct in that? And so we're wiping that out?
Correct.
Okay.
Sure.
And the brief stuff I read made it look like a lot of the concern was about ground contamination, site contamination. So did I get that right, or is there more going on there?
You want me to chime in? I can chime in. So the site has been used as a transfer station, but I think that often gets lumped in with the term dump or landfill, right? It's trash, but it's not, nothing was dumped into the ground. It's always just been a transfer station. The Environmental and General Services Department and Tucson Water are still currently on the site, and they are working through relocating. So they're just moving to different parts of the city. And yes, there's been past things, right, that have been done throughout. We've owned the site since 1931, and it was kind of developed as this in the late 60s, early 70s. We do have all the environmental reports right now, and there's nothing that's been flagged as high contamination. It's all very, manageable and able to be remediated pretty simply because there was no like burial of stuff under the ground. So yeah, we are working through all the proper environmental steps and requirements, especially when it's tied to federal funding. It's even more in-depth and intense than like a private developer not using any federal funds. So we're going through all those steps. But yeah, I think there's a disconnect maybe in the terminologies, and you hear dump and it's scary. So that's a concern, but we're trying to highlight and showcase the, what the reality is on site and be up and transparent about all of the findings in the reports.
Okay.
And we're also, just want to add, kind of working on a follow-up with those kind of immediate neighbors around the area that have had concerns. So that's also something we'll have a better update on at the next meeting. And I think that's the HCD update.
All right, good. Any other comments or questions for you for HCD? Okay, we are running a little bit behind schedule here, so I'm going to move us along. Our next agenda item is the Mayor Council update report on what we've been up to. So can I share my screen, or can somebody else?
We'll make
share
you a
the
co-host, Jim. Just 1 second.
So I'm gonna run through this. I don't expect us to approve this today. But what I would ask is that that everybody look at it and send me feedback before our next meeting, and I'm hoping we can approve this as a commission for our next meeting.
You can share your screen, Jim.
Okay. Make sure I get the right file here. All right, does everybody see the Mayor and Council update?
Yes.
All right. So we'll change the date. I'm just going to run through this pretty quickly here. So put this together in the last week and beginning of this week. And basically what I did is use the template from our previous updates and just went through the meeting minutes for the last year and bullet pointed some of the things that we've done as a commission. And it's actually a little bit longer than I was thinking, because it's hard when we're in these meetings. It sometimes feels like we're not getting a lot accomplished, but there's actually quite a few things that we've done in the last year. So first thing is just going through the commission roster. We do still have a vacant seat, which HCD has recommended somebody to fill that to Mayor and Council. I believe just the one seat is vacant right now. And then some of the topics that were discussed over the last year are as follows. So we did a review of the HUD choice voucher utilization within the city. We completed and reviewed the equity study, which was developed by the ASU grad students for the city of Tucson. We reviewed the current homelessness trends and data collection in the city of Tucson, including the point in time count and the needs assessment and beds utilization. We recommended establishment of an affordable housing goal for the city of Tucson. So I'm making an assumption here that as a group, we're going to approve this today. And if we don't, then I'll change this. But the recommendation is 15,000 units by the year 2030. We reviewed the city of Tucson's housing trust fund, which currently has a balance of $312,000, and discussed updating the policy on how those funds are used and replenished. We assisted with the evaluation of proposed projects submitted to the city of Tucson for supplemental funding under the city of Tucson's P-CHIP program. The following projects were reviewed, received a recommendation for funding from the city based on the presentations received. So we had the Casa del Pueblo, which did receive an award. El Camino Apartments, Rincon Manor also received an award from the city of Tucson. From ADOH. Shasta Apartments was La Fronteras project that did not receive the award, and then Tucson House. We're working with Laurice Walker, the Chief Equity Officer for the City of Tucson, to better define housing equity. We received updates on the P-CHIP initiative and providing feedback to staff on the proposed goals and programs. We reviewed the Prosperity Initiative documentation to understand how it can support the city's affordable housing goals. We worked with Planning and Development Services on the proposed changes to impact fees and the new zoning overlay, which will help promote infill housing. We're attempting to collaborate with Pima County's Affordable Housing Commission to explore potential for an affordable housing bond initiative to be added to the ballot. So it's a pretty good list of things. And I guess what I would like to hear, and we don't have to answer this today, but what I'd like to hear from other commissioners is there anything that I've missed? Is there things that we should be adding to this list or changes to this list? And then I'm going to restate the goals that we've just approved, the revised goals. And then the last thing that I want to put on here is what are asks. So there's actually one vacant seat that we'd like to get filled. We'd like the mayor and council to adopt the affordable housing goal. If there's other things that we would like to ask of mayor and council, now's a good time to do it. So put it up for comments and questions. Marianne?
So Jim, we had a letter for mayor and council that we were supposed to talk about at our last CEHD meeting, and it wasn't on the agenda. That, you know, goes over why we're asking for this 15,000 units. And you wanted the commission to approve that letter. Is that part of today's meeting?
Yeah, that's the next agenda item.
Okay, thank you. That's all I needed to know.
So just understanding how this commission works, it's almost impossible for us to approve something on the first pass. So I'm not going to even ask, but I am going to ask that you guys take a closer look at it this next month. Send me an email if you have comments or changes. And I'm hoping that we can approve it in our next commission meeting, which I will not be in attendance of. So Jay, hopefully you're comfortable with this.
What is it when the legislature has a bill and they get rid of all of the wording and come up with something totally new? Is that, can I do that?
Sure. Yep. But you're presenting it.
Strike everything after the enacting clause.
All right. Any other comments or questions on this? Marianne?
Because you were so involved in this, I'm wondering if we should change the next meeting so that you can be there.
Well, we'll talk about that when we get to the end in terms of when our next meeting is going to be. Yeah. I don't think there's anything super controversial in here, but all right. Any other comments before we move on to the next agenda item? All right. Next agenda item is to review the affordable housing goal for the city of Tucson. So this is, I think, the second, or I think this is the third time we've looked at this. Last time we talked about it, there were some questions from the commission in terms of some of the data. So we've been talking to the city of Tucson to confirm, and these are, I guess what I'd like to say about this. So this is the document. We've seen this before. So the very top kind of gives a needs assessment. This is from the National Low Income Housing Coalition. That's straight off their website. The Tucson Affordable Housing Snapshot is a point in time. Obviously it changes, but this was the best data that we had as of about 2 months ago. So what we believe, and the deficit of affordable housing units, the 26,000 and the 34,000, that is not from the National Low Income Housing Coalition. I don't remember what that's from. Maggie, do you remember where we got that?
Which number?
The deficit, the deficit of affordable housing units in Pima County or Tucson. This 26,000 and the 34,000 that came off of a report.
I don't recall.
And I thought I put the source down here, but I don't think I did. Obviously I didn't. Okay. Marianne, do you remember where that came from?
I actually thought it was the National Low Income Housing by state.
Yes, I think you're right, Marianne.
Yeah, I think you did. That is the source, Jen.
Yeah.
Is it for Pima County or for Tucson?
We had Tucson, so they go by state, then they went by counties, I think. I can't remember. I have to go back and look at it again.
But I believe they have a breakdown for Pima County. I'm not sure if it's broken down at the city level, but I know they have it at the county level, and you can compare it with the state and against other counties.
Okay. Marcos, if you have that source, if you could send that. Oh, here it is. I've got it. Okay. So it's the first one, the NIHLC org, the state gap.
Yeah.
Make sure the numbers are the same. Actually, they've changed a little bit. So they've gone up.
Yeah, they do an annual update. They put numbers out annually.
So this one's still good, the 26,651. Okay, so that is the correct source. So in terms of the supply, we have 1,489 units that are owned by the city of Tucson, 4,996. There's Section 8. The home ownerships with permanent restrictions, it's really difficult to do this. The best that we could identify was 94. We believe there's more than that, but that's just
PCLT's number, and it's now about 102.
102. Okay. Okay. So the total is up by 4.
I know I didn't want you to redo your math there, but oh well.
Yeah. So the affordable housing units in the pipeline. So again, this was as of 2 months ago. So I know that I think 2 projects have completed since then. So this number is going to go up, this number is going to go down, but it's in general, I think this number, the 12,018, is a good guesstimate of what we think is going to be in the city limits by the beginning of next year. And then we know that there's 1,882 apartments or units that are potential falling out of affordability, meaning that they're over the next 5 years, they've met the statutory requirements, and if desired by the owner, they can remove all affordability restrictions. Okay, so in terms of our goal, we'd like to see 3 9% LIHTC projects per year on average, 2 4% projects, 50. This is a bit of a stretch goal, 50 new units per year for home ownership, and then 80 other units that are not LIHTC or home ownership, for a total of 755 new units per year, assuming a 2 to 3 year development cycle. In order to have projects in operation by 2030, they need to have funding commitments by 2028. So with our current stock plus our units under development, minus the ones we're saying 250 are going to fall out of affordability over the next 5 years, with the new 755 units per year, that takes us to 15,637. So to keep the numbers rounded, we're saying we'd like to see 15,000 affordable housing units in the city by 2030. And with this goal, we'll fulfill roughly 10% of the deficit. Kenny?
I think you had the right numbers. Looking at this, the source, there's a difference between the households and then the deficit. For the extremely low. This was a bit back in the previous page.
Okay.
Yeah, that 35,000 number.
Oh, so this should be 34. Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, I see it. Okay. Yep. Okay. Thank you. All right. So I think that really the key here, guys, is this line right here. Is we want something very simple that can be a talking point with the city, that we want to see 15,000 affordable housing units in the city by the year 2030 is a affordable housing goal. And the rest of this stuff is basically back up on how we got to that number. So one of the things that a recommendation that as we were talking about this, because the data is scattered and it's really hard to find, one of the other recommendations that we made as a housing subcommittee was that there should be a housing assessment completed. There's currently an effort underway between Pima County and City of Tucson to complete a housing market study, which is estimated to be complete sometime next year. And we think if the city could take that along with a housing needs assessment, then we can, take that information and adjust these goals as needed. Mindy?
Thanks, Jim. When I see that, I know how much work went into this. And what my gut reaction, my feeling is that when we're just looking at the affordable housing units is only addressing 10% of the deficit, I can't help but ask myself, why are we shortchanging? It doesn't feel right that we need more. Yeah, you know what I'm saying.
Right. So so that's kind of what this paragraph addresses, is to achieve this goal. If you assume that the total development costs of a new affordable housing unit is between $360,000 and $380,000 per unit. It translates to almost $1.4 billion worth of development, which has to occur in the city in order to hit these goals. And what we think the participation from the city of Tucson will be required is about $15 to $50 million. So, you know, there is an ask here that the city needs to participate, but the numbers are so big. And that's why it's so difficult to get these projects done. Jay?
I really appreciate your comment, Mindy. I tend to agree, but what I really do like is that it is, I think, practical and realistic and well thought out. And, you know, it is something that the city could potentially do. And I think, you know, to your point, Mindy, it just shows how much more capacity, how much more resources is really needed in order to meet our affordable housing crisis. And, you know, unfortunately, it really just can't come from cities. It's got to come from state and federal sources as well. So that's kind of the way I look at it. But I really love the, you know, 15,000 as just something that you can easily pull out of your back pocket. Hey, we talked this through at the commission. We think $15,000 units is practical. And so I think it's great and support it, but also, Mindy, share your concerns.
You know, this is a stretch goal, given that we had 10 total awards this year. The city of Tucson received 3, so we met the first one for this year. It is a stretch goal to say we're going to do that year after year if the allocations don't change. So I agree with you. It seems like, you know, this is a lot for just 10% of the deficit, but the data is what it is.
No.
So I guess the question I'd like to ask is there somebody who would like to make a motion that we accept this as written, and give it to mayor and council?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, thanks. Is there a second?
I second.
Okay, thank you. Seconded by Mary Ann.
Mhm.
Is any other comments or questions before we put this to vote?
Just thank you for your work on this, Jim, and then also the, you know, folks who discussed this in the affordable housing subcommittee.
You're welcome. Yeah, I think I have to say, I think that this is, it is a good overview. And I'm happy with the results. So, all right, so let's go ahead and put this to question. So, Maggie?
Aye.
Mary Ann?
Aye.
Mindy?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Lori? Oh,
Aye.
Lori's here. Okay. Kenny?
Aye.
Jay?
Aye.
All right, the ayes have it. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate it. So we're gonna go ahead and Neto, let's I think there's a few little formatting errors on the one that you sent out because the font was increased. So if we could just fix the formatting errors and prepare that for mayor and council, I'd really appreciate it.
Will do. And before I send it to mayor and council, I'll share it with you to make sure it's all correct.
Thank you. Okay, so our next agenda item is the subcommittee reports. So Housing First is, Tisha's not here. Is there anybody that wants to report for Housing First? I think they had a meeting 2 days ago.
Correct. Mindy,
Yeah, I could, or Mark, would you? Oh, he's not there. We did a review of the Housing First programs that January through March, 171 people were provided services and housing, 110 adults and 61 children. The heart, we, talked about how many people, they have 30 employee, people working with the heart program. So, more data, the mobile shower was used by 304 individuals, January through March. And that, excuse me. My phone rings in my hearing aids. Discussed how people in the 100 acres encampment and other encampments are being offered and provided resources, referrals to programs, although there are no, and this is how I understood the conversation, that there currently are no supported permanent housing first beds available. And I brought up an agenda. We had someone unable to attend our meeting who is going to talk with us from, her name is Rachel from Phoenix, on the sanctioned campgrounds that is happening up in Phoenix. Our subcommittee was tasked to research sanctioned campground facilities that are currently up and running around the United States. We will also have, so for our next meeting, the director of the homing project will be presenting to the subcommittee to look at alternatives to having a brick and mortar place to move into, so we can reduce our homelessness, people who are unsheltered. That's it. Mark, anything you want to add, or Lena? Austin? Okay. And thank you, Austin, for your great presentation.
Thank you. That's a lot. Any questions for the Housing First? Okay, Equitable Housing Strategies, Jay.
Yeah, thanks, Jim. So we talked quite a bit about what we talked about today, past harms and repairing past harms, and how that fits into equity and our role on the as a commission, which obviously was, as I mentioned, reflected in our conversation today. Otherwise, we are basically spending the summer months looking into policies around the country that communities are using to make housing more equitable, so that we can think about coming up with some concrete examples of things that the city of Tucson could do to create more equitable housing in the community and for folks that live here. Let's see, what else? We are working on trying to get the Office of Equity to re-engage with our subcommittee with limited success at this point. And we are talking about potentially meeting in person and having that meeting facilitated by Colleen and or Tani, just to help us kind of organize our thoughts and get some stuff down on paper. So I'm waiting to hear if that's going to be possible, which since I'm talking, makes me wonder what happened with Colleen and Tani helping to facilitate our meetings. I know that's something that we had talked about wanting to have, but it's June and that I haven't heard much about it. So anyway, that was what we undertook in our subcommittee, and a little bonus as well. So there you go.
And Jim, if you'd like, I'm happy to give a quick update on the status that Jay asked.
Okay.
Okay. So folks have submitted their their application to become a city vendor. That was received about a week and a half ago, and so now the proposal review committee is being convened to review that application and score it, as well as a couple of others that have come in, and then we'll be able to move forward. So my guess is, if not the July meeting, by the August meeting, we should have a contract in place, and then be able to be bringing them in. But it is moving forward, just sort of at the pace it does.
Thanks, Jason.
Yep.
Okay, any questions for Jay? Okay, I'll give a quick update on the Affordable Housing Subcommittee. We met this last month and really just talked about three things. The biggest point of discussion was the mission statement, which we all talked about today. We talked about reviewing the affordable housing action plans from other cities. So the takeaway was we're going to come up with a list of cities who have put in place other affordable housing action plans, so we can start to review those as a subcommittee. And then at our next meeting, I think we're going to be talking about the impact fee structure and some of the changes that are happening right now at the city. See if we have any recommendations as a commission to give to Corin and Development Services. Any questions on that? Okay, good. So next agenda item is we're going to have a standing agenda item here for a little while until we figure out what we're doing. But one of the things that we want to figure out is a joint meeting with the county's Affordable Housing Commission. And Mark, I don't know, for those of you who don't know, Mark is the new chair of that commission. So, and then Marcos is obviously with the county. But the goal, I think, is to talk about if and what a affordable housing bond initiative would look like, and what can we both do as joint commissions to kind of help push that forward. So I think the first thing we were going to try to do is reach out to, who are we going to reach out to?
So staff is working on setting up a meeting internally to kind of understand how the logistics work on our end. And so that's that commission is under the county's community workforce development department. So that's Dan Sullivan.
Thank you. That's what I was looking for.
We're working on that.
Yeah. So we're trying to get something set up with Dan Sullivan as well to see if we can push that forward. Marianne?
Yeah, so I had originally met with Dan several weeks ago, and he was going to reach out to Ann and the county or city folks, which it sounds like he did, but he's also set up a subcommittee from that commission to from the Pima County Commission to work on a regional bond. And from what he told me last week, and I'm wondering, you know, if the housing subcommittee and the mayor's commission, you know, should be part of the group that works with the Pima County Commission on this regional bond.
All right. So anybody have any comments or thoughts? But I don't know that we need to do it we can do it at a subcommittee level. I'm not opposed to that. But I think the first thing is a full commission, we need to be talking about kind of goals and objectives of a joint meeting, and so that there's some guidance to the subcommittee. So I know, Mark, we played phone tag on this a couple times. We've not talked. If there's anything if you have thoughts you'd like to share, go ahead. If not, it's fine.
Yeah, I don't really, I'm kind of done. I mean, I'm kind of worn out. It's been a long
meeting. Okay. All right. So let's keep going. So as we said, our next meeting is July 4th. I am out of the country from the 3rd till the 22nd, which if we push it to the if we push this meeting to the 27th, then we're going to have basically 2 meetings back to back because I'm sorry, we push it to the 25th. The following Thursday, August 1st, we have another commission meeting. So I'm not sure that we want to push it all the way out because of me. We could do, if we're going to, I guess one option would be to move it up a week to June 27th. So we'd have 2 meetings the month of June and then we'd skip July. The other option is a lot of times boards and commissions, I think, skip that July month just because there's a lot of people who travel out of Tucson the month of July. It's pretty miserable here sometimes. So I guess I'd like to hear from the commissioners if there's a preference on one way or another. We could do a doodle poll, put it out to everybody and what you'd like to do. Let me start with the question. Is there anybody else that's going to be missing the next meeting? If we do it on either June 27th or July 11th.
Jim, Nepo here. Equitable Strategies is scheduled for June 27th.
We can probably make accommodations.
I will miss the meeting if it's on June 27th. I'm at a conference.
And I won't be here either on the 27th. Jim, when do you leave again? The 3rd?
3rd, yeah.
What about the 2nd of July, the 1st or the 2nd?
We could do it the 2nd. It's a Tuesday.
Do we have, what's the next major business that we need to take care of? Obviously, there's the letter to mayor and council. Is there anything else that's urgent that we need to take care of, in July? Because we could vote on the letter by email, correct? If that's the main piece of business. And I guess I'm just proposing canceling the July meeting.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. I can send it out to the commission, and we can get everybody's feedback. We'll send it out for a vote via email. Try to get that out next month. And then we just skip July and then reconvene in August. Mindy?
I may be speaking out of turn, but I have sense of urgency to bring to the commission any work that the Housing First Subcommittee may get done, specifically moving forward with a presentation to the commission to think about or to talk about sanctioned campgrounds happening quickly. So that's just my personal angst. Or tiny villages or something. It's just.
Hey, Corin, question for you. When does the impact fee proposal need to be going in for approval? How much time is there for that?
I'm not positive what the timeline is for that to go to mayor and council. That's a great question. I can find out.
Do you think it's in the next 2 months? Like if we wait until August, are we okay?
I believe so, but I'll check and confirm and get back to you.
Okay. Well, I guess that's the other question. Is there other agenda items that the commissioners would like to see in our next meeting? All right, I'll tell you what, let's do a doodle poll. We'll send that out here this next week with 2 or 3 dates. So Neto, I'll give you a call in the morning. We'll talk about what that is, and then we'll put on there if we want to just skip July and then and try to approve the communication virtually, and then reconvene in August as an option on the doodle poll.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Any other thoughts or agenda items before we close?
I just wanted to invite you all. Pima County Community Land Trust is hosting this Saturday at the El Rio Neighborhood Center from 9 to 12 a homeownership fair. I'm hoping that those sent out the flyers, but please, send them to your clients, constituents, tenants, family, friends. It'll, free food and lots of information.
9 to 12 on Saturday.
Yes, at the El Rio Neighborhood Center.
Okay, that's where we had our last in-person meeting.
No, that's the El Pueblo. El Rio is on
so-
Speedway and Riverview, west side.
Speedway and what?
Riverview, right next to, well,
Arizona School for the Deaf and Blind.
yeah, it's a little bit.
Between there and the golf course.
Yeah, by the golf course, exactly.
Okay, all right. All right, anything else? Well, amazing, it's 6 p.m. We are finishing on time. All right, thank you guys. I know this was a little bit of a challenging meeting for us. I'm glad we got through the things that we did. I appreciate everybody's participation. And have a great month. We are adjourned.
Thank you.
Take care, Jim, everybody.